Greetings Indie Warriors and welcome to I Dream of Indie. My name's Old Gamer Joe, hopping through time to bring you another review today as we look at puzzle platformer What Lies in the Multiverse on Steam. This is a game that may initially have you believing that it's a comedy, but make no mistake, there are some very dark themes across this 8-hour adventure. You'll be taking control of a young boy who's fascinated with the concept of parallel universes to the point of locking himself in his room for days on end, where he's attempting to create a simulation that will allow for people to experience different results through one event in time. Well, I'll be danged, he actually manages to transport himself into some sort of alternate universe, and here he meets a strange man in a purple top hat named Everett, whose own simulation is being disrupted by you tinkering around. Without going too deep into all the details here, this sets off a much larger journey of traveling through multiple dimensions where you'll begin to question everything and everyone that's around you. This story does seem really complex on the surface, and I'm the first to admit that tales of dimension hopping and time travel are not always my favorite, as they tend to get a bit convoluted in my experience. But when it comes to What Lies in the Multiverse, I really loved this narrative. The well-written dialogue is a joy to read, the script is funny, it's dark, it's clever, and the characters that you're introduced to have a surprising amount of depth to them. Everett, for example, appears as a one-dimensional jester joker type at first, but this is a game about multiple dimensions after all, and these characters are actually pretty deep. This is a game that will brilliantly play with the player's emotions. You will have moments of sadness, you will laugh, you'll feel a lot of different ways throughout. As far as gameplay is concerned, you'll be doing a good amount of platforming, yes, but the main emphasis is going to be on puzzles, so if you're not a fan of the puzzle genre, this probably won't change your mind in any significant way. Controls are really simple, there's not a lot of actions to be worried about. You can jump, you can interact with items, there's a few hidden items scattered across the different chapters, 9 chapters in total, but the real kicker here is that you can switch between universes. Not every single moment in this game, but certain chapters do allow for this, and it does create some pretty interesting situations for you. The game will actually utilize this mechanic in some really clever ways, and quite well the majority of the time. The basis of these puzzles is mostly the same though. You're going to move blocks, you're going to throw switches, and you're trying to get keys to unlock gates so that you can progress forward. It's the way that these alternate universes are incorporated with these puzzles that really makes this gameplay special. For example, you might be in a quote light world where things are all peaceful and happy, and then you find yourself at a gap where you just can't cross no matter what you do. But if you switch over to the dark universe, there's a bridge suddenly and you can cross, but something else perilous might be in your path. Another example is a later chapter where your second dimension has no gravity, so you'll be floating all over the place. This will make blocks float, and it leads to some really clever solutions. None of these are too difficult to solve, that's the good news, but you will need to rely on a little bit of brain power. I would describe the game as fairly linear. You're always going to know what direction you should be heading. Some of the later chapters do open up a bit where you might have to go off into different directions, but you do ultimately have to solve every puzzle in a given area, and while any puzzle game will eventually wear me out, the pacing here was excellent. There's some really great cutscenes in between to go back to the character interactions. They're all fantastic, and they keep things moving at a nice brisk pace. To accompany the excellent writing and fun puzzly gameplay are some nice pixel art graphics here. They're nothing that you really haven't seen before in other indie games at this point, if I'm being honest, but they get the job done. The environments are detailed. Where this game's visual strength really lies is when you flip into those other dimensions. That's super cool, just to see this world from a new perspective. You'll see humans that were alive, and then with the flip of a button, you'll see their skeletons laying there. It's really quite a dramatic change that can kind of mess with your head. I also have to say that each chapter did feel unique from the last, so I appreciate that greatly. You'll go to libraries, you'll go to space stations, you'll be in grassy areas. Pretty good job here in terms of overall visual design. Even more than the visuals though, I actually really have great respect for the sound design in this game. It's awesome when you switch between universes and you have darker themes for the dark universe and you have these happy, joyous, bouncy songs in the lighter universe. Very effective stuff. Some of the themes seem to pop up at just the right moments too, so you'll be interacting with Everett, for example, who has this big personality, and you get this big bombastic song with snapping and clapping going on and almost a jazzy vibe to it. Some really great music musical compositions. Not a soundtrack that I would listen to outside of this game, but excellent inside of the game. That said, the actual sound effects are nothing all that special. You get a sound when you bounce or when you're walking around. You have footsteps, of course. There is a cool kind of swoosh effect when you switch between dimensions. Again, that is a strength of this game in general, the dimension shifting, but those sound effects are certainly not the strength of this game. What is the strength of this game is pretty much everything else. In fact, the only real complaint I have is, I think it was chapter 6, where they sort of switched things up a bit and you have a map and it's sort of a larger area, and I didn't enjoy those puzzles quite as much as all of the other puzzles in this game, but I was still able to get through it and not a big deal. So at the end of the day, not too many flaws to discuss in this one. Performance on the PC was flawless. I didn't have any hitches, any crashes, or anything like that. The game ran smoothly. No complaints there. This one's actually going to win the Golden Genie Lamp of Approval. I just really got sucked into these different universes. Pun intended, I guess. But there's some great characters here, really strong writing. The gameplay is fun, and the puzzles are not all that frustrating, which I definitely appreciate as someone who can struggle with puzzles. The visuals are really enjoyable, standard pixel art in a lot of ways, but still, I like them, and the music and the compositions all work really well to create a phenomenal package here that you shouldn't miss out on if you're a fan of puzzle platformers. This is one universe that you'll definitely want to get lost in. Thank you so much for watching the latest video from I Dream of Indie and supporting independent content. We would now like to take a moment to shout out our brave indie warriors: Bill T, Christian Cruz, Kevalo, Mitchell Hall, Chris Jackson, Nathan Moore, Adriana Amato, CJR, Seek Coil, Skeptism, Haley, Julian Colbish, Jen Rose, Jesse, CPM, Bunny, Ray Lynn, Marky Mint, Dave Hart, Peekaboo, Lex Noel, Eric PSC, King of the Hatch, Carmine Red, Larkison, and Blue Francis 14. Thank you so much for all that you do for independent developers, publishers, and for I Dream of Indie. Everybody else, please head down to the description box below. Let's defeat the gaming echo chamber and bring a voice to the voiceless ones in gaming.